Hi, everyone. So, like I've started the past couple of classes, I'd like to start with one of Dr. Shafari's cards from her Wings of Flight parenting cards that you can buy on her website if you're interested. The one I chose for today says, "Don't use your children to fill your inner cup. Fulfillment is purely an inside job." I'll read it one more time. Don't use your children to fill your inner cup. Fulfillment is purely an inside job. And so that's what it looks like. And so we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to start first with the lessons that I've learned from this coronavirus and that I hope we're learning as a globe, as a universe. I find it very interesting, the synchronicities of the lessons. So for example, the uncertainty that a lot of people are feeling right now because of the coronavirus, right? And the possibility of death. And when you sit down and really analyze it, that's always been there. Life has never, ever been certain. We never know when our last breath is coming. We never know when our last heartbeat will take place. All we do know is that at one point or another we will die, but we don't know when, we don't know how. So even though right now it's kind of like, I say it's uncertainty on steroids, because it's everywhere. You turn on the TV, you listen to the radio, friends, everybody's talking about it. So it's really in your face right now. And it's a constant reminder that life is impermanent and that life is uncertain. And I also find it sort of, I don't want to say beautiful, because I really want to be sensitive to, there are a lot of people suffering right now, and there are a lot of people dealing with a lot of issues right now. So please know that I am not saying that none of that is real or valid. I'm just looking at the lessons that I've learned and the synchronicities of the virus and the lessons of life. So the virus is literally taking away people's breath, right? It's the people who are falling deathly ill to it. It's taking away their literally their breath. Yet, if you listen to any wisdom teachers and any spiritual teachers, we keep being reminded that our breath is what we have to help us calm ourselves, to help us stay connected to who we truly are. So the importance of the lesson that this virus is literally taking our breath away, and that the way we can cope with some of this fear is by getting on our breath and really using our breath to calm our nervous system down. Another lesson that I've come across is how now we're being asked to wear masks. So it's like a representation. It's a physical mask that we can see everybody outside wearing and walking around with, right? But in life in general, how many masks do we wear that are invisible, that we can't see when we're walking around? If you listen to my video on the inner child and the ego and understanding that, you'll know what I'm talking about, of all the layers of our ego. Those are all the different masks that we're wearing, all the different roles that we've identified with. The role of being the good girl, the role of being the good spouse, the perfect parent, the way we want to portray ourselves out in the world and the way we want people to see us. those are all the different masks that we're constantly wearing out and about that are invisible. And now every time I see somebody wearing a physical mask, I think to myself, wow, you know, what a reminder of these invisible masks that we've been wearing. So we have uncertainty, we have staying on the breath, and our breath literally being taken away. We have the physical mask versus the invisible masks. We've also been asked to stay home and remove anything that is not essential, right? Only essential businesses are open. Only essential workers are out and about working. So we are literally being asked to examine what we feel is essential to our lives. And all these distractions that we've used in the past, whether they be roles that we identify with, whether they be things that we purchase, help that we bring into our homes to help us with our tasks of cleaning and different things, this is all gone, right? This has been peeled away. We're down to the bare minimum in a way. So what I feel like I've learned from, or am learning from this virus, is realizing that all we really have is what's inside of ourselves. All we really have is either the fear or the abundance that we live with on a daily basis. And so the virus is just holding up that mirror for us, because that already lives inside of us. It's been inside of us for years. It's how we live our lives. It's how we do everything in our lives. We either do it with a lot of fear or with a lot of abundance, or somewhere in between there. And so we think, oh, the virus is causing this fear. No, the virus is holding up the mirror for us to see the fear that we typically live with. When we peel away all these distractions, we're being asked to stay indoors with our immediate families and really connect to ourselves and to our close family that we're with. And of course, we're not meant to live 24/7 with each other, and we're gonna get triggered, right? And again, triggers do not come from the outside, they come from inside. So I think it's crucial that we take this time and this opportunity to really go within and analyze and reflect on and listen to our thoughts and connect with our feelings, so that we could see and discover and become intimate with our inner life, and get used to the idea that safety doesn't come from outside. Safety comes from within us. So we always have the ability to connect to our safety and to connect to our essence, which in fact is our safety. It's our abundance. Our true essence is completely abundant. But all the layers that we've put on top of that is what's creating the fear. But if we peel those away, we take off the masks, we focus on breathing and connecting to our breath, and really connect to what is essential, listen to our thoughts, and remove anything that's not essential. And not really remove it, but become aware of it, right? The more we become aware of it, then we can analyze it. We can think about it and say, wait a minute, is that really my thought? Or is that something that I've been conditioned to believe? Is that something that I was raised to believe? Is that something that society has conditioned me to believe? Where did that come from? Do I really, truly believe that? And expectations, right? We have expectations that the government should take care of us and create safety for us again. But is that truly their job if safety lives within us? Right? So we're giving away our power. Like, yes, of course, on the form level, they have things that they have to accomplish and they have ways of doing that to help the general safety, of course. But when it comes down to us as individuals, we can create that safety and that calm and that abundance within ourselves. And the more we do that for ourselves, the more we hold on to our power, and then that energy within us and that light and that connection that we have to ourselves, we bring it forth into our homes with our children, and they connect to that and they feel safe. So in the beginning, when I was saying, don't use your children to fill up your cup, it's an inside job. So this is part of it. It's an inside job. It's our safety. It's our calm that we have to focus on and not expect anybody else to do for us. And so that leads me into having expectations. And so if you think about it, if you have an expectation, by definition of the word itself, it's something about the future. Because if you're expecting something to happen, it means it hasn't happened yet. Therefore, you're not living in the present moment. And like I started in the beginning with uncertainty, we never know what the next moment is going to bring. We never know if we're going to have our breath, our heartbeat in the next moment. All we have is this moment right now. And then the next moment is, that's the only moment you have. So when you begin to live your life as, this is the only moment I have right now, I'm grateful, and look around for and name what you're grateful for. Right now, how do you feel? Right now, what's your reality? And you stay in this moment right now. And that doesn't mean that every single moment is going to be perfect and beautiful, right? But when you can accept the moment and you can see it for what it really is, without any expectations that you're putting on it, without a story, without any beliefs, then you can just say, oh, this is what's happening. You can stay factual. So for example, I was telling the people who participated last week about the sink, my kitchen sink. And I have teenagers. And so I would go to bed every night and leave the kitchen sink clean and the kitchen counters clean. And I would wake up with the expectation that it would be the way I left it. But my kids are now, because there's no school, they're staying up till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And so they get hungry again. And so they start cooking, and they dirty dishes and they dirty pots, and there's crumbs on the counter. And I wake up to a sink full of dishes. And so the first couple of weeks, I was getting really angry and I was getting really frustrated, and I would barge into their rooms and demand for them to clean up after themselves. And I started to notice that I was carrying around this energy of like anger and frustration. And it was affecting me throughout all my interactions with them. And I started to notice that they weren't coming out of their rooms very much. When I would go into their rooms, they were already defensive, and they were, what do you want? And I was able to at least listen when they would tell me. Every time I come out, you tell me to do something, or you give me a command, and yes, at first I took it personal and I got angry. And after a couple of times of hearing them say this, I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit, I'm gonna breathe, I'm gonna let this go through me, and I'm gonna figure out another way to connect with them. because obviously this isn't working. So what I realized is that they were absolutely right. Every time they came out of the room, I was just, remember to do the dishes, remember to unload the dishwasher, remember to, you know. So I said, okay, I'm losing my connection to them, which is already kind of hard with teenagers because they want their personal space, and that's perfectly normal. So I started to do the dishes. In the morning when I would wake up, I'd have my breakfast, and then I'd come and I'd do the dishes. And it wasn't like a huge amount, but I started to do the dishes calmly, looking out the window, feeling the warm water, listening to the thoughts in my head, which in the past and for a while have been, I can't believe that they don't care about me and that they don't want to take care of my needs, and that they expect me to do everything around here. What kind of kids am I raising? How are they gonna grow up and keep a clean kitchen? Like if that's the most important thing in the world. But so I would just like take off on this train of thoughts and projection, and so I was like, okay, bring yourself back. There's nothing wrong here. They're not expected to take care of my needs. What is my need? Well, my need really is that I like to have a clean sink. But that's not their need. That's my need. Because you could say, well, my need is that I need help around the house. But really, I don't. Like, I can handle doing the dishes. Right? My life is not so extremely busy and so extremely calling me to do all these things that I can't handle doing the dishes. But I had this record playing in my head that it was their responsibility, and that to be good adults and good responsible adults, they had to do the dishes. And I also had the story playing in my head that them not doing the dishes for me, because it was my need, meant that they didn't care about my needs, or that they didn't care about me. So really, I was trying to love myself and validate myself through them doing the dishes for me. And that's when we become enmeshed. That's when we've created those stories that are not helpful. Because one has not, I wasn't staying in the as is. The as is dishes are dirty and they didn't do them. That's it. I have a choice. I can do them. I can stay calm and keep my power within me, keep my calm, and walk calmly to their rooms and say, hey, I noticed you didn't do the dishes. Are you going to do them before lunch or after lunch? And see, and hold that boundary and keep them responsible. I could definitely do that too. But I chose to push myself out of my comfort zone of wanting the cleanliness. And I was like, well, if it's my need, I can't make them want the same thing I want. Like, if somebody doesn't like dogs, you can't make them like dogs because you like dogs, right? We're all different. We all have different needs. We all have different preferences. And so their need for cleanliness of the sink is not the same as mine. So I did the dishes, but I do it more mindfully without the victim story. So I look at it like, well, the dishes helped me remove another layer of my ego, become aware of another layer of my ego and of trying to get my needs met on the outside. So another example how we could do this is, for example, your spouse is gonna buy you flowers for your anniversary. And I don't know if any of you have done this in the beginning of your relationships, but you know your anniversary is coming around and you want flowers, and so you drop hints here and there about what your favorite flower is, but you don't really ever come out and say it. You just kind of drop hints here, you drop a hint there. And then your spouse goes to the florist to buy you flowers. And when they get to the florist, to the flower shop, the florist says, oh, so you've been dropping hints that you like yellow roses. And the florist says, oh, these pink tulips are a beautiful expression of how deeply you love somebody. And so they say, oh, well, I love her deeply. I'm going to get her the pink tulips. That I don't remember if I said pink or red, but the tulips. And they come home and they present you with these tulips. And you're like, oh, thank you. But in the back of your mind, you're like, they didn't listen to me. How many times did I drop the hint I wanted yellow roses? And they show up with tulips? Gosh, he doesn't listen to me. He doesn't care about my needs. He doesn't love me. And they kind of pick up on some sort of energy. And honey, what's wrong? Nothing, I'm fine. And it's like, we're expecting them to fulfill our needs, but then we don't even have boundaries enough to come out and say to them, hey, if you're gonna buy me flowers, I like yellow roses. And like my husband has told me, if you want me to know something, you have to tell me explicitly. I don't understand this, hint dropping. If I want him to wash the pot in the sink from dinner, I need to tell him, honey, I need you to wash the pot in the sink tonight. Because if he doesn't see the pot in the sink, because again, he's got a different level of need for cleanliness that I do. So back to the flowers, it's the same thing. We have these expectations of people fulfilling our needs. And it's like, they went out of their way to get the flowers, and they got the flowers that they were told meant it was a sign of the deepest love possible. And yet here we are pissed off because they didn't pick up on our signals. So we want to control every single tiny little aspect of what's happening, right? Like, can we ask them, well, why did you pick tulips? Instead of getting upset and giving our power away, and then probably ruining the rest of the night because we have this inner energy of anger and frustration. And so the same thing happens with our children. We have expectations of them, but if we don't sit with those expectations and examine them and go underneath and say, wait, what is really the need that I have here? And that doesn't mean you can't say to your child, hey, I need you to do the dishes in the sink, because when you don't do them, I feel like you expect me to do everything around here. Go for it. Say it. You don't expect that they're going to necessarily all of a sudden be willing to do it. And don't create the story behind it, the emotion, the feeling that they don't love me because they're not willing to do what I've asked them. We have to remember that they are their own human being. They are their own sovereign spirit with their own needs. And even though when they're little, especially, and we are parenting, it feels like, well, we are in charge of fulfilling every single one of their needs. Can't they just fulfill one of mine? Right? And it's normal to feel that. But we're the grown-ups. We're in charge of fulfilling our own needs so that we don't project that onto our children. And those needs really come from our inner child and from not having our needs met when we were children, of not feeling heard and seen and unconditionally loved when we were children. And therefore we created all these masks and like layers of the ego, and we stopped truly being ourselves and taking care of ourselves because we were always looking on the outside to see if we were being good, if we were living up to the expectations of everyone around us. So now that we're the parents, now that we're the adults, becoming aware so we don't do that to our children, so that we're not putting expectations on them. And so right now, this virus is in a way helping us, because we can't have an expectation of what tomorrow is going to look like, because we don't know. Are things still going to be closed? Are things going to be open? Or are we going to be able to go out? Or do we have to wear a mask? We don't know. It's a day by day process. And that's how life is. It's a moment by moment process. And the more we can flow with that moment and accepting the as is of the moment, just the facts of this is what's happening, without creating the stories, without creating anything else, we can stay in that moment. We can see it for what it truly is. We can notice if we are coming from fear and lack or abundance, and then we can calm ourselves down, getting on our breath. The more we get on our breath, the more we meditate, the greater that muscle of pause when we're feeling triggered. Because our triggers also come from our expectations not being met. And so we get triggered. But it goes back to it's an inside job. It's an expectation we're having. It's a need that we're noticing isn't getting fulfilled. We're expecting something or someone on the outside to fulfill that for us. But we're not children anymore. We're grown-ups now. It's our turn. It's our job to fulfill those needs for ourselves. It's our job to be the grown-up in the room and tell your inner child when they're raging that they're safe. Tell your ego that you don't need it anymore to protect your inner child, that you're there, you're the grown-up. You can take care of your inner child. And yes, you talk to your inner child, you talk to your ego, and you tell that you're safe. You can handle this. I'm here for you. Just like you do with your real physical child. When they're having a hard time, it's the same thing we have to now do for ourselves, so that our inner child feels seen, heard, loved unconditionally. So we're aware of all our shadows, because we're not perfect, but we still love our inner child and ourselves. We still feel like we are enough and we are worthy, no matter what we've done, no matter what mistakes we've made. No one is perfect. We're not perfect parents. We're not perfect human beings. So total acceptance of the moment, total acceptance of ourselves, of being able to live in the moment and feel inner calm. Taking away all the masks that we've been wearing to try and please everyone and everything around us and live up to everyone's expectations. And connecting to our true essence. Part of the reason I started doing this work was because, so I have an older daughter and a younger son. And my older daughter was very much a people pleaser, right? She was very much, I would yell at her and she would just take it in and not fight back. My son was the opposite. My son, almost from the get-go, it seems like, would fight back, would tell me no. He, at like 8 or 9, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're trying to control me, stop." Luckily, I was able to hear that and not take it personal. I probably did at first, but I was able to process it and calm myself down and that's how I found this work. Because I said, okay, wait a minute. I'm the adult here. I'm the one that's supposed to know how to self-regulate. I'm the one that has a choice here. I can change because I can't expect him to change. He's a child. And we can't expect anybody to change. Or we can keep clashing. And I can ruin our relationship. And so I decided to start changing. And I decided to look in the mirror and see how controlling I was and how much I needed to peel back those layers and look in the mirror and heal and figure out, why am I trying to control? I never realized how much anxiety and fear I had going on inside of me until I started to do this work and I started to meditate and I started to analyze and listen to my thoughts and notice, like, I would get upset and I wouldn't even notice that I was upset. I would go to the kitchen and start cleaning the kitchen counters without any connection to my upset. And then I started to realize, wait a minute, every time I get upset, I go clean the kitchen counter instead of sitting with those feelings and processing them and listening to the stories that I was creating in my head. And so years went by. And this has been a process, and I'm nowhere near perfect. And there is no such thing as the perfect parent. It does not exist. It's about doing the best you can in the moment. And when you mess up, because you're gonna mess up, you go back and you try to repair it. Always with the focus on the relationship and connection. So my daughter was the opposite, and she would take it all in. And so she held a lot of that in. But as my son got older and she started to see that when he would fight back, I would allow him to have a voice. She eventually started to find her voice too. And she eventually started to, fight back. And I was like, oh, okay, she's finding her voice. Like, to me, that was a good thing, right? Yeah, I had to deal with it and I had to, calm myself down yet again in more moments now and have more opportunities to not take it personal. But I saw that as a blessing. I saw it as her starting to have a voice, as her starting to find her voice. And so, yes, obviously, we have conversations later on when everybody is calm, never in the moment, about, so it seems like you were angry about something. Tell me about it. And so I noticed that you were so angry, you called me a name. It's not helpful when you call people names. You could say, I'm really angry right now. I need my space. Leave me alone. And so I did that for, if it feels like an eternity, I would say that and say that. And I gotta say, like, my son, who was the one that would do that, is now 14. And when he gets angry, he just goes to his room and he calms himself down. And he literally will come out like 15 minutes later and be a completely different person. And it's gone through his body, he's calmed himself down, and he comes out ready to interact again. And there's no more name calling. But when that first happened, I took off on that train again. And I mean, to me, he was already in jail because he had gotten into a fight in high school. Like, the kid was like probably in 5th grade at the time, 6th grade at the time. But in my head, he was already in high school, got into a fist fight because he called somebody a name and ended up in jail. Like that, right? So I had to become familiar with that story that I was telling myself, become aware of it. And then tell myself, no, that's me projecting my fear. That's not what's really happening right now in this moment. and coming back to my breath and calming myself down and saying it's okay. It's okay that he doesn't know how to process his anger right now. He's a child, but I can model it, and then he can start to learn how to do this, and we can have the conversations. So it, conscious parenting, it's all about us. It's all about us doing the work so we can model it for our children and we can inspire them, because we can never change anyone or control anyone. So it all goes back to going within, going within, calming yourself down by staying on your breath, removing those masks, becoming intimate with our fears, our fear of uncertainty, which is always there, but right now on steroids. It's always there. So how we decide to show up in this moment will help us. Once this is over, uncertainty will still be there. Our invisible masks will still be there if we haven't tended to them. Our essentials will still have the choice to decide which ones we really feel are essential. Which ones are we going to let back in? Our expectations are still going to be around. And how are we going to work with those now? So take this opportunity of this virus, and on a global scale, we're being not only asked to, but pushed to go within and sit with these lessons and work with them so that we can become more present, so that we can learn to stay in the as is moment, present moment, and so that we can learn to fulfill our own needs, take care of our own inner child, so we can truly see the child that's before us, the physical child that's before us. We can truly see them and what they are asking for us and what the moment is asking from us, without projecting all our baggage onto the situation, all our stories, all our beliefs, all our conditioning. So I hope that helps. I'm going to turn off the recording so we can do some Q&A.